good morning, everyone. So welcome to the Busy Mums Wellness Show. Today is Wednesday, the first Wednesday of April. And I'm so glad and happy to have our first guest for our April edition for Busy Mums Wellness Show. And I am going to introduce her very quickly and then she will take it away. So today we have Anne-Marie Brown. She's a certified life coach and the founder of Queen Bee Creative Mastery. So what we wanted to do for the Busy Moms Wellness Show in this April edition was to invite mothers who've done it so that we will have a variety of strategies, in relation to anything in relation to motherhood. And I am so honored to have Anne-Marie with us this morning. So don't think that you're going to leave. I know that this show is an hour, but stay. She is going to go over, she'll speak about her experience and then go over routine, boundaries, and me. So, Anne-Marie, take it away. I will keep quiet and then give you the stage for you to go ahead and share your experience and then anything that you think that it will be really good for us to hear today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. And it's really great to be here today on the Busy Mums Wellness Show. As Mary said, I'm a certified life coach, but I'm about all things mental health and well-being. I think it's very important, particularly for us as busy mums, to prioritize our health and our wellness. Healthy from the inside out is what's really important. And so a busy mum, well, I am one of them. And I can also say I was one of them. And that will make sense in a bit. I have 4 children, but they're all adults now. So I think I can bring a wealth of experience from the many years of raising these children. But I think one thing that's really important, as I've said, and as I, converse with Mary, the most important thing for me as a parent is knowing where the boundaries are, having routines, and also looking after ourselves. And how can we really do that effectively? Society, even now, will dictate still, because we're still in an era of sexism. So society will dictate that the woman's role is to work full time, keep the house, keep their partner satisfied, make sure that they're able to do all the extracurricular activities. And there's zero mention most of the time of how that lady looks after herself in the midst of all of that. And so that's one thing that I'm very, very passionate about, having been through the stages of child rearing. And so with my story, I had 4 children very close together. So there are 24, 25, 26 months in between my 4 children. So I have one who's currently 26, then 24, 22, and one's nearly 20. So I had them very close together. And I think at the time, it was almost like a novelty. Oh, I'm going to, have a child and life is going to be great. And I'm going to be that textbook person, I'm going to have everything together. Everything's going to be perfect. My children are going to be well dressed all the time. And when relatives come, there'll be a pot of food on the fire and the smell of baking bread and all of those sorts of things. And that was what I had in my mind, not necessarily because that was my focus, but society and also family and culture determines how you become as a parent. And I think you have a responsibility to honor your cultural norm, whatever that may be, but also adapt it to suit your own needs in your current time. And so I got to the point where I had the 4 children and I chose to be a stay-at-home mum. It's not for everyone, but that's what I chose. My husband and I, we chose that I would stay at home, look after the children, be there for them, and he would go out to work, and we would take a hit on some of the nicer things like holidays and all of that. We'd take the hit for a while whilst we went through that process. And one thing I will say is that there were a lot of people who would refer to me as Superwoman. And I think that's one of the worst things you can say to a mother with small children. Something more appropriate would be, is there anything I can help you with? Because having small children, having children together, having them at home is a big deal, and we should never play that down. I think society just expects you to know what to do when these little people come into the world. You give birth and you're in that love bubble, but when you go home from the hospital, or if you've had a home birth, when you've finished and everything's packed away, you're literally left there with a small human with no instructions. And you just have to rely on your instincts for a period of time on how to navigate life. And so in terms of routine, the first thing I would say is that having children will push you into having some sort of routine. But from my experience, don't try and put your babies and children into a routine too early. It will stress you out, and it will stress the children out. And if the children are stressed, you're going to get stressed. And if you're stressed, it reflects to them, they'll be stressed. Vicious circle. So what I would say about routines is just be sensitive to what your children require. So when I had my babies, I fed on demand because that's what they wanted. And when they slept, now the story is, when the baby sleeps, you can get on with the housework and all of that kind of stuff. When my baby slept, I slept too. Because you've got to think about your mental well-being. That time with your baby is a part of bonding, even when you're sleeping. That's a big part of bonding with your baby. And so the housework, it will get done. So I think we put too much of a stress and emphasis on that, but the emphasis in those early weeks is all about you and baby getting to know each other, getting to know each other's routines. And you'll find if you don't try and force a routine, something will come in naturally. And so for me, by 6 weeks, I was very fortunate. My baby slept through the night. I was very fortunate. And that was just because I allowed them to just do what they were going to do. I fed them. I didn't let them cry. And that's a bit of a controversy there as well, because there are so many different theories. But I didn't let them cry. They're only supposed to cry as an indication, not as a continual thing. So if they indicated, I pick them up and keep them close to me. And I did that consistently. I did kangaroo stuff, and I just put them on a sling and carried them everywhere. And believe it or not, I slightly digress. The one who was the worst, she just didn't like to be put down, is the most independent now. She's 24 and the most independent out of all the children. So I think routine, always follow your child's cues, and they will help to guide you into routine. And please don't feel guilty if you don't have a 9 o'clock baby's up, then they go down for their nap at 11, then it's lunch. Don't feel guilty if you don't have that, because at the end of the day, this is just about you bonding with that child and getting to know them. But also in the midst of this, try and set yourself a routine of self-care. So when you are able to do things like have a shower, make that your quality time, because you will only have smaller pockets in the first few weeks. So make the most of that. When you're in the shower, do some deep breathing. drop a couple of drops of peppermint oil on just into the shower floor and inhale that. It would do good for your well-being. So take those small moments that you do get and make them meaningful. And I can't emphasize it enough. Don't feel guilty. Mum guilt is a real thing. Don't ever think you're doing things wrong, and don't allow people to say, well, you should do it like this or you should do it like that. There's no textbook that can prepare you for motherhood, but you just have to listen to the cues of your baby. Your baby knows what to do, and it's important for you to listen to their cues and respond to them appropriately. So that's a little bit about routines when they're babies. As they get a bit older, things do become easier in terms of routines, because your child needs to learn routine, not because you need to be in control or strict or anything like that, but your child needs routine to prepare them for life, to prepare them for school. Because when they go to school and nursery, all of a sudden there'll be these new routines. And so when you have a toddler 2 years old, it's really important to start setting routines so that they can be prepared for life. Our early learning stages between 2 and 6 are very important. And so we can get them used to waking up at a certain time, get used to having breakfast around a certain time, lunch again around a certain time, dinner or supper around a certain time, and bedtime around a certain time. Personally, before 2, my children did not have a set bedtime. When they were tired, I put them to bed and they would sleep. When I did try to, get that routine in, it was like, sis, who do you think you're trying to play with here? They gave me a run for my money. But once you let them lead that up to a certain age, then when you do start to put routines in, it's easier. And it's also easy because they'll see you in routines. They'll see you wind down at a certain time. They'll see you maybe pick up a book, read and relax. And so I would say by the age of 2, start to introduce some routines, not all at once, but start to introduce some routines that will begin to help them navigate their way through the life that's coming. Because nursery is a bit of free flow, but once they get into reception and start moving their way through, it's all about routines, it's all about boundaries. And so it's important that they learn that in the home. And so for me, how did I manage that as a parent? And I'm parenting with my husband, but remember, I'm a stay-at-home mum, so I'm there most of the time. I had a routine when they were a little older. So I would do the school run. I'd come back from the school run, bearing in mind I still had a baby with me. Once a week, I would do the big shop. So on a Monday, I would go and do the big shop with the baby, come back, sort all that stuff out. But our daily routine then would be, once I've cleared the breakfast things and all of that, I would, do some reading, do my own little research that I used to do. I love to study, so I'm always studying. And that was another thing that I was doing. And then I'd get ready to get the child from nursery. So then me and the baby would go to nursery, pick up that one, come back, we'd have our lunch. And then by the time we've had the lunch, one would have a nap, and then we'd go back again at 3 to get the others from school. After that, back home, prepare dinner for everyone. They'd have their dinner at a certain time. Then hubby would come in and his dinner would be prepared. And then we'd do our bedtime thing around about 7:30, 8. I didn't do it too early because those children, you put them to bed at 7, they'll wake up at 5 a.m. So around about the 8 o'clock mark, 8:30, then they would be going, and then they would wake up around about the 7 a.m. mark ready for school. And so that's how I manage my day. So having routine is not a bad thing, but it's where you introduce the routine that's important. Um, and so for boundaries now, boundaries is a big thing. And I think that the first boundary as a parent that you need to put in is who comes to your house.
Whoa.
That's a bit of a harsh one.
We don't
But
think about that, do we? When it comes to especially family.
you have got to take control of your environment very quickly after you've had your first, if you have more than one, whatever. But once you have that baby, you've got to set those boundaries, because people, once you have a baby, they want to come and see that baby. That's their whole total focus. When you're there going through your postpartum up and down scenario, and you've got people coming and cooing over the baby and holding the baby and breathing over the baby. So you've got to, your first boundary has got to be managing who comes to your home. And what I did the first time I had my first child, I had my first child, and you know, it's your first one, so everybody's excited. I had a private room in I had my first baby in Whipps Cross Hospital, and I had a private room. And when I looked back on the video, because I filmed everything, there were 13 people in the room. I don't know how that happened, but there were 13 people there. And when I look back in hindsight, I thought, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Just a quick thing. We're not promoting that you should be having all your family members. This is how many years ago?
This was 26 years ago.
Exactly.
But that was shocking. But the come down was the next day, there was nobody there. And I'm left with a baby, which, yes, instinct does kick in, but everyone was gone. And so I learned very quickly that it's important to protect your space with you, your newborn, and if you have your spouse, your spouse. Very, very important to protect those first few weeks with for yourselves. If people contact you, will say, actually, I'd appreciate a meal, you know, or I'd appreciate some help in the house. And it's okay to ask for that help, because it's not just about people coming and cooing over your baby, because once that baby starts walking and talking back, they lose interest. They're not interested anymore. So it's really important to set those boundaries, manage who comes into your home, not just to see the baby, but it's unfortunate, but you do have to kind of almost analyze people's motives. Why do you want to come here? Is it just because of the baby, or do you actually want to help and support me? And I think, especially culturally, there's the expectation for me, I can talk for my culture as a Caribbean, that everyone comes and sits down and is looking for food, rather than, you know, providing it. That's not the blanket for everyone, but it is common. And so protect your space, and it's okay to say no. It's actually okay to say no. We're brought up to say yes and to be appeasing to people, but it's okay to say no. Use that word as a boundary. Actually, no, you can't come and visit today. I'm a bit tired and I'm not up to visitors. Let's arrange something next week. It's okay to say that, rather than okay, and then that person comes and you're miserable. Because we have to remember that the postpartum time is very, very sensitive. All your hormones are going back to normal and all of that sort of things, and they can play horrible games, you know. So really do put in that boundary and protect yourself. And then we skip forwards to when they're older and they start going to school, and that's a new level of boundaries to introduce, because now your children are beginning to navigate life as an adult although they're not an adult. And I say that because now it's like they're going to work every day. They're waking up, they're having their breakfast, they're going out for 8 hours, and they're coming back home again exhausted. And then they're going to have to get something to eat. They're going to have to bring school home because they get homework, and then they're going to go to bed. So now you've got to put boundaries in place, not just for your children, but for yourself, because you have to now, as a parent, safeguard the learning experience of your children, and you have to be more present than absent. And so it's really important that you learn to manage what you are doing outside of the school hours and keep that to a manageable amount so that you can be present in the evenings for your children. And I do say that, having come out the other side where I now have adults, having adults, children, also demands a lot of your attention. And sometimes I say, why can't they all just go back to being two? Because it was way easier when I look back and reflect. But when they come to that teenage stage, they need more attention than when they're in primary school, because now you have less control over the people that they begin to associate with. Whereas in your primary school, you've got your year group, and year groups will stick to each other. But when you go into that teenage and secondary school, you have maybe, depending on the school, 900, 1,100 children all on one site, all interacting with each other, all making cliques and groups, introducing things that, you know, we wouldn't introduce from our home. And so as a parent, you really have to put those boundaries in place and almost manage the people that your children say are their friends. That seems a bit harsh. I remember one of my daughters, she came home and she said, "Oh, Mum, my friend said X, Y, and Z. I won't say what the friend said." And I said, "Well, that's not your friend." "Oh, no, but that's my friend, Mummy." That's not your friend, and you don't need to associate with her. And we have to draw in those boundaries as soon as we notice things like that, because it will have a huge impact on them moving forwards. And so whilst we may see the word boundaries as something heavy and something difficult, it's a necessary thing to put in boundaries so that we are protecting our children. If you have property, you know, you put in, the boundary is there to mark, number one, what belongs to you, and number two, to protect what belongs to you. And it lets other people know, this is my property, this belongs to me, and I'm supposed to defend it. And that's what we're supposed to do with our children. We are supposed to be the defender. We're supposed to be the protector, because they don't know how to protect themselves. And so when we put those boundaries in, our children will by and large not be happy about it. And as parents, we have to be okay that they're not happy about it, because we are their parents and we're not their friends or their age mates. we are put here on this earth, if we have children, to be stewards of those children and to help them grow, to help them nurture, to help them navigate their way through life and to find their own purpose. And so putting those healthy boundaries in will help them to achieve that. And so routine, boundaries, and then there's me. The me often comes last. And it's a terrible shame, because the me should come first. When I'm doing mentoring, I often use this analogy. When you're going on holiday on a plane, you get there and they're sorting things out, you sit in your seat, and when it's almost time for takeoff, when the plane starts to taxi, the cabin crew start to tell you about the safety information. And they say, should there be a sudden drop in the cabin pressure, the oxygen mask will fall down, will come down. Please put yours on first. before you try and help anyone else. And that's a very, very good life principle. If you are not okay, safe, and secure, you cannot help anyone else. If I put someone else's oxygen mask on first, I'm going to die. So it's you've got to think about yourself first, especially in our culture, in my culture. Thinking about yourself first, no, that doesn't happen. You come at the bottom of the pile after everyone else is looked after. And it's not a horrible thing. It's just that's the culture.
Mhm.
But me personally have come to change culture for my children.
Well,
And they see me putting myself first. And so I know I have good routines. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. I have good routines. I have good boundaries, but I also know how to look after myself. How did I learn that? It took tragedy to help me to learn how to do that. In After the birth of my first child, I felt a bit down. Baby blues, call it what you will. After a many of years, I realized it wasn't just baby blues. I had postnatal depression.
no.
And I had it after the second child, and the third one,
Wow.
and the fourth. But being a Black person, I'm going to put it out there, you just don't go for help because it's not the thing to do. You just don't do that. You
No.
just keep on going. And when you speak to your elders, your mother, your grandmother, well, I just got on with it, so you just need to get on with it. And that didn't come from a bad place. It's just that's all they knew. They didn't know about therapy. They didn't know about helping yourself mentally. It was just, well, just get on with it and you'll be fine.
Mhm.
But I wasn't fine. And in 2013, 2012, I just wasn't feeling right. And it's almost like I was going through life, going through the routines,
Mhm.
knowing where the boundaries are, but it's like someone else's life was playing out. And I'm thinking something's just not right. And I couldn't seem to get anything, was just not making sense. And so I found myself going down in a spiral, but still functioning. So I'm in a church and I'm a leader in the church, and I still kept going and I still kept doing my duties and I still kept doing the school runs, and I was a magistrate, so I was doing that, and I was chair of governors, I was doing that, I was singing, so I was doing that. I was doing
Wow.
everything just by routine without thinking, but at the same time, I'm sinking. And so at the end of 2012, I had a breakdown. And I would say it was one of the most frightening things for me as someone who likes to be in control, number one. And number two, for my children, because my children were like, around the eldest ones were like the 13 age,
Mhm.
and they went down from there. And for them to see their dad looking after mum like mum looks after them was very hard for them to go through. Um, and so I had to end up, going and seeing the GP and all of this sort of thing. And I was diagnosed with moderate to severe depression. And so I had to navigate my way through those waters. I made a choice not to be medicated. And they gave me a choice. Did I want to be medicated, or did I want to try other therapies? And because I'm a thinker, I'm a creative person,
Mhm.
I went for cognitive behavioral therapy, and I went through that. Um, and you know in the show today, I'll leave that for another time, but I was miraculously healed from depression in 2013 in February. But through that, I learned the importance, and since that I've been well. I learned the importance of prioritizing me. And
Mm.
from that point forward, every morning I prioritize myself. I read, I meditate, I have my devotional time. I look after myself spiritually. Whatever spirituality may mean to you, look after yourself spiritually first thing in the morning, whether you do yoga, whether you do whatever it is, look after yourself in that way first. And then I learned the importance of saying no, because I'm someone who loves to help people. I love to see people excel and I love to see people do well. But I was doing that at the expense of me. So now I've learned to do what I love, have that same passion, but have the important boundaries in place. Also, every 6 weeks, I take off. So every 6 weeks, I either go on a staycation or something like that to recharge the batteries. You don't need loads of funds to do that. Just even if it's near to home, take that weekend, go for a walk in the park, take your book with you, take your own picnic for yourself, and just treat yourself nicely. If for you, shopping is the thing, save up for that 6 weeks, then go and enjoy yourself in Westfield or somewhere. But take that time to nourish yourself. And also, when it comes to health, look after your own health. Sometimes as women, we just keep going and keep going, and we may find a little ache here and something, and we just ignore it because we think, oh, that's just a part of life. No, anything like that, check it out. Do movement. I know some people don't like the E word, exercise. So just call it movement. Do some movements, get moving. I got stuck in that rut of just being at home, just eating. And I tell you, my first love was chocolate. I used to love chocolate. And the big size bars, I will go through 2 or 3 of them a day without any problem. And you think about it, your whole calorific intake for the day, I'd eat 4 or 5 days worth in a day. And the weight just piled on, piled on, piled on, piled on, piled on. And I neglected me. But I had to take back a hold of that. And people would see me and I'd say, oh my gosh, you put on so much weight. And I say, you know what? I have hypothyroidism. So, it's the thyroid. You can't just blame it on that. You have to take responsibility for eating that chocolate.
Yes,
and people
definitely.
used to say, but you're vegetarian. Vegetarians can also put on weight by eating the wrong foods. So, so I let myself go in that respect. But I had to get to the point where I took ownership. And so if something happens to me, what impact is that going to have on my children, on my husband, on my family, if something happens to me because I didn't look after myself? And so I had to take charge of that. And I'm still on that journey, having started it in the last couple of years. Because I was very much, no, I'm happy with how I am. Nobody needs to judge me. I'm happy with who I am. When deep down, I'm like, for goodness sake, I'm putting on something else and it can't fit. But you don't want to admit that. And so I had to take charge of being well inside as well as outside. And so I'm not a vegetarian anymore. I'm vegan now. I just said, okay, let me just go the whole way. And I cook my own food. I know where my food comes from. I don't have so much of the processed stuff. And that's choice. I can't say to anyone else to do that. I still have things like, I use processed stuff like tinned chickpeas because it's all long to boil your own, right? So I do things like that, but I keep my diet healthy. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and I said, you know what? Yep. And I was medicating for it, but then this is my story. So you don't have to do that. I got to a point of, okay, what if it isn't RA? Because I have the one that's where it doesn't show in the blood, where it says negative. What if it's not? What if it's a lack of vitamin D? What if it's the fact that I'm not exercising? What if it's the fact that I'm overweight? What am I going to do about that? I need to take control of the situation rather than putting toxic chemicals into my body that may be helping, but they also may not. And again, disclaimer, this is my story, you know. And so I switched that up and I decided, okay, I'm going to look after myself holistically. And holistically is working for me. And so going back to our topic, routine, have your routine, keep your boundaries in place. And sometimes people around you may not appreciate your boundaries, but it's up to you to enforce your boundaries. Actually, this is the standard that I prefer, and I'm going to keep that standard. And you have to be okay to say that, even to those who are near and dear to you. And looking after me. Me is the only one who can help me, fix me, all of that. You're the only one who can do it. People will be around you, encouraging you, but at the end of the day, the decision is still going to be yours. And so I've come out the other side of the mental health challenges, and that's why I'm so passionate about mental health, because when I did recover, I didn't find much to help me on that journey of staying whole and staying well mentally, and learning how, when life throws curveballs, not to go back down that pit of depression, but how to manage those things that come, because life will throw the curveballs, but we have to put things in place to help us to navigate our way through without staying down. Things happen. Have I felt down since then? Absolutely. Things happen. But have I stayed down there? Absolutely not, because I've put things in place to ensure that that doesn't happen again. And so that's why, you know, I love to mentor people who are coming out of anxiety and depression or other challenging circumstances. We go through bereavement. That's a part of life. As we are born, we're going to have to exit at some point. And again, in the diaspora, we don't like to talk about death, but death occurs. Once you're born, you're going to die. And it's good if you can talk about it and have things in place and know the things that are expected of your family when you go. Those conversations are okay to have. We don't want to, but it's okay to have those conversations, because death is guaranteed, and you don't want to leave people in problems when you're gone. And so all of those healthy conversations are really important, but prioritizing yourself is the key. Now, what have I done to safeguard myself? I had to drop a lot of the extra things I was doing. I love being busy. This is the Busy Mums Wellness Show. I love being busy. I feel like I can't cope with life if I'm not busy. But if you're busy, be busy, but have your balance correct. And so instead of doing 10 extra things apart from my day job, maybe I only do 5 now. Okay. I still like to be busy, but I'm managing what I do, and I prioritize my days. This day is for X. This day is for Y. And if somebody from X day wants to do something on Y day, I say no. It's a simple thing. So I prioritize my days in that way. And if I'm able to do something, I will do it 100%. But if I know that I don't have the capacity, I'll be respectful. I would love to do that, but I don't have the capacity right now. So it's okay to almost let people down, but it's better that you do that than don't deliver on what they've asked you to do. And so, you know, that's where I'm at. And as I've said, the routine has its stages. You've got babies, you've got toddlers when they're in primary school and when they're in secondary school. The boundaries change when the children go through those stages. And then how you look after yourself changes as you go through those stages. If I can make a closing comment, I would say give yourself the space to change and adapt. As you change as a woman, things are different from when you were a first-time mom to when you have an adult. Allow yourself the space to adapt in those circumstances. Allow yourself to become, as they get older, you're still their parent, but you almost become like their sounding board and their critical friend. And so you have to change as a parent, where you don't treat them like they're 5 when they're 20 in their 20s. You don't police them like they're 15 when they're 29. You know, you've got to adapt as a parent. And again, you've got to be okay with doing that. My husband and I, we're about to go into a different stage of life where the eldest gets married next week. That's a whole nother thing. And
Wow.
I'm like, oh my goodness, in a few years, I'm going to be a grandparent, you know. So it's all going to change again. But allow yourself the time and the grace to adapt as life changes and life adapts. If you choose to work, you know, don't let work burn you out. If you choose to be an entrepreneur, do that to the best of your ability, but don't allow it to burn yourself out. Take that time. As I said, every 6 weeks, my husband and I, we take a chill pill and we just relax, because life is busy. And may I say, even as a busy mum, if you have a partner, you know, that you protect your time with your partner. Partners were there before children came. And it's important to remember that. And so you also have to make sure that you have protected time with your partner, because your partner's not just there to make babies. Your partner's there to go through life with you. And so it's important to protect your time with your partner. And so I think I'll, you know, kind of conclude. I said loads in there, but just remember routine, boundaries, and me. Make sure you have your routines, but they're adapted to the time frame that you're in. Your boundaries are for you, but they're also for other people to know how far that they can step up. And for me, make sure you look after yourself, prioritize your mental health, prioritize your physical health, prioritize your total well-being.
Wow. What I'm going to tell our audience is, if you've joined late, just go back, because the strategies and tips and nuggets from your experience, my God. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. When you started sharing in relation to, you know, when they were younger, it's like you're currently speaking to me. Like, because I've got a 7-month-old baby. I have a 7 years old, 10-year-old, and a soon to be 17. So you sharing your experience, I've gone through the early stages of life. I still have a 7-month-old baby. So there's a whole lot that I'm still learning. And then now we're going into the teenage years, you know, we're already in the teenage years. So I'm listening and learning, and I'm taking notes. So if you see me not looking in the camera, I'm taking notes like, well, this point was really, really great. And I do applaud you for touching on cultural norms. For us, culturally, my God, you've had a baby, you touched on it, but you still have to be cooking, have to be cleaning. But I'm grateful for you to share that you adopted your needs according to your own self.
Yeah.
Even though you're following the cultural norms, you've adapted it into your own needs. And that is amazing to hear. As you said, busy moms were busy doing so many things, you know, and it's even, as you said, being a stay-at-home mom, you still had routines, other things to do. We have so many moms out there going through that. And it's also really great for them to understand that it's them first. You know, you need to look after yourself. You need to, you know, self-care, even at work. You still need to look after yourself, because if you're not in the right state of mind, how are you going to be sure of doing the right thing or providing the right care, or even, you know, writing the right report? You know, all these things and things come to play. Thank you so much for sharing on your journey from vegetarian to vegan now, and your rheumatoid arthritis. Thank you so much. I think, my God, you have so much wealth of knowledge and then the experience. I will definitely be coming to you to speak on other things. I think it's really, really great. And I think now at the moment we do have some busy moms also wanting to transition from, vegetarian to vegan, and being in the UK, how do you source foods? How do you, all those knowledge and things. So I would definitely be coming to you speaking in terms of that because you've done it for so many years. I would
Mhm.
want to learn as well. Mental well-being, housework, routine to prepare for life, especially the teenage years. I cannot thank you enough. This has been amazing. Listen, if you just literally join in, or you've joined and then left thinking that you come back, make sure that you come back. Go to the start of this video because I'm definitely going back to watch because I need to grasp, especially the teenage years. I need to start learning. Yes, I need to, start getting again that relationship, especially when they're boys. They want to be very quiet and all those things. And I loved you sharing about, our parents. Like my mom she wouldn't mind me sharing this, but she's put us first, the 6 kids, and even the grandchildren. And
Yeah.
I always go back to when I'm like, you're 75 years old. It's about time. You need to just literally say, that is what I'm going to do for me.
Yeah.
And then, the rest onto us. But
Mm.
she would change one day. I know, but that's the way she was brought up. Everything about her, it's, the kids, my grandchildren. And I'm just hammering it into her. So hopefully, she will start looking after herself and taking care of herself and put herself
Mhm.
first. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So this is the Busy Moms Wellness Show, and today's session was the first session of our April edition, and we had who is Anne Marie Brown, who is a certified life coach. She shared her experiences as a mother and talked about routine, boundaries, and me. So, as I've said, go back, just watch the replay. If you have any questions at all, put it in the comment section and we will be able to come back to respond to you. So, I will take this opportunity to say thank you, Anne Marie, again. And we will come your way next week at 11 a.m. GMT with another guest. So, have a blessed day and bye.
Bye-bye.